Hello and welcome to the That's So Craven podcast. We're here to have a quiet and miserable review of our game against Bournemouth last night. Disappointing as it was, but perhaps not entirely unexpected. I'm here with a couple of new guests and one familiar face and voice. And I'll go around the circle and introduce, or the square, in fact, and introduce you. Skibby, thanks for joining us.
No, it's good. Well, it's good to see your lovely faces. It's good to have a chat with you guys. I mean, before we were on air, I guess it's great not to talk about Fulham, but then obviously we're now drawn to talk about Fulham. So, yeah, it's a tough one to take. In the most positive of ways, I didn't really want to be here, but here I am.
Well, it's quite funny actually because I seriously thought you'd actually pulled out, or I wasn't quite sure, and I thought, oh
I
no,
tried to blag
toys,
that a colleague would put
toys have
in a
gone.
work a work meeting in at about
Yeah,
10:30 last night, so I don't think I could get away with that too well. But I
yeah,
tried my best.
yeah, yeah. Well done. Well, thanks for being here, and I'm very very excited to introduce a couple of new voices and faces to you all. Um, Firstly, Luke from FPL Crusader fame. And Luke has actually been a guest on the podcast before,
Okay.
but welcome again, Luke.
Thank you very much. That was for a loss as well. So next time I come back, I want it to be for a win. But thanks for having me. I really enjoyed last time. So we'll get through it together.
Unfortunately, you don't get to choose, Luke. And when we lose, no one wants to be here. So it's probably going to
Yeah,
be you
well,
and I.
fair point.
Now, I'm looking like I've got a circle spinning around here on our next guest, but I'll carry on and just
He's here.
if it okay, great. I'll just keep going then.
Yeah.
So my next and final new guest for the evening is Jimmy. Welcome, Jimmy.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for having me. And like everyone else said, it's not the greatest time coming in for a loss, but looking forward to breaking the game up and yeah, after that disastrous start. So yeah, looking forward to talking all things Fulham and all things when's the next win coming.
Just before we start talking about the stuff we don't really want to be talking about, let's turn to something a little bit lighter. I was always going to share a little post that someone sneakily shared with me today, Jimmy, and that was something that I think perhaps your wife put up about a number of years ago. A picture of you with Uncle Roy when she nominated you for the most diehard Fulham fan, international fan. Do you want to talk us through that?
I think that was, yeah, it was long. It was 2010, 2011, maybe. So basically I bumped into Roy. This was when I was living in England for a few years. So I was living in Canterbury in Kent and got up to the game early. It was a West Ham game and got to meet Roy. Told him he was one of my heroes. So an Australian meeting one of your heroes, you don't get to see that very often. And it was, got a nice little picture down the street, I think Crystal Palace Road or somewhere there right near the stadium. Yeah, it was fantastic. So I was a bit starstruck at the time. So it was nice guy. We got to chat for a little bit and yeah, it was good.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was an interesting comment you made. You said, as an Australian, we don't get to meet our heroes very often. Is that because we don't have any, or everyone is a hero to us, or we just don't meet anyone?
Yeah, well, correct. Well, for me, it's more like my heroes were Fulham players, right? So seeing the person or your heroes out in the flesh, it's a huge thing, right? You go over there and look, I was really lucky enough at the time that I got to go to a lot of away games when I was there and got to meet a lot of people. But and so I think my wife sent, when going back to it, she did send something in at that time for overseas best fan, because I think she was just used to me getting up at all hours of the morning. Even I hadn't missed a Fulham game for years. So I think she was like, well, I'm going to nominate you. So I went, fantastic. So she just did, without me kind of knowing until I saw it. So it was funny. So you
Well,
go.
fair play. I mean, both Jimmy and Luke, you guys being on the east coast of Australia, like Sam, proper hardcore. I mean, there are, for most of the season, you're 3 hours ahead of us on the west coast, which makes it a very, very, very late night. And that is proper service to the cause. So even I'm impressed because most of the time the game finishes at 12, maybe 1 o'clock in the morning for me, which is kind of okay, but 3 a.m. is pretty crazy stuff. So well
Yeah.
done. Anyway,
Thanks.
guys, let's talk about that which we must. Look, as I said in the opening, not an entirely unexpected result. Fulham, we are giant killers and giant slayers against the very, very best, as we did last week against Liverpool, obviously. But boy, we struggle against teams who are at the very, very bottom from time to time, and just as much with teams who are around us in the Premier League table. But one of the main reasons that we're set to struggle is that we don't go well against a low block, and we struggle. And really, yesterday's game or last night's game was anything but that, and yet we still struggled. If not to keep an early goal out, we struggled to actually break them down successfully enough to actually put one in the back of the net. And boy, we had some opportunities, all evening long, which was, I guess, a big part of the frustration. But Skibby, I'm going to force you, because I know you don't really want to talk about this, but it's part of it's part of your
It's therapy.
it's part of your therapy. Give us a very, very quick breakdown of where. Obviously, we went behind very, very early. I think on the 52nd or 53rd second of the game, which is ridiculous. But apart from that, well, let's talk about that goal. It's pretty significant. It's obviously something that put us on the back foot all night, and there's lots of discussion about what actually went wrong there. Give me your view, and I'll go around the houses here. But give me your view on what really went wrong there.
It was just a number of things, really. Like, the goal came from us after Anderson finally connected to a decent switch for the first time in about 10 games into Robinson, who took a fantastic touch, got it down, and then I think he spots Muniz on the edge of the area. Okay, he tries to chest it in the path of Pereira. Bit strange, but okay, he's trying something, first minute of the game. I don't hold it against him. But then after that moment of when they get it clear, that's when the wheels come off for me, and it just goes from bad to worse to absolute travesty, where Castagna seems to have all the time in the world. He could bring the ball down, tap it into the path of anyone, but he decides to take it first time and puts it behind the entire midfield. And then I think it's Alex Scott, who, great player, by the way. I really wanted us to get him from, I think it was Bristol City. And then he just sort of drives. And then you're thinking, okay, right, we're on a bit of the back foot here. Somebody stick a foot in, trip him up, take a yellow at this point of the game because, they are running currently square on at Bassey and Anderson. Robinson, who I just mentioned, was on their byline at this point. Well, just minutes before this. So he's sprinting like anything to get back and get goal side of Semenyo. So he's not really settled. He's flustered. But by not taking that chance, he's then, I think we eventually get a tackle in on Alex Scott, but it's too late by that point. He's already got the ball out of his feet towards Semenyo. And fair play to Robinson. He was backtracking. He sticks a leg out, he gets a minor touch on it, but then he gets caught out. And for me, I think it's more of the fact that a lot of people can say that was absolutely woeful defending from Robinson, but I think you've also got to remember he's just sprinted about 40 yards, 50 yards to get goal side of Semenyo. So he's losing his footing and he tried to correct himself and he's been caught out. But for me, and I don't really like to play the proper blame game here, but it's all come from this weird decision by Castagna to play it first time and get it back behind the midfield, and then we're all just out of position and completely flustered. And fair play to Semenyo, another one I would have loved to us to pick up from Bristol City. He's just an absolute menace with both feet. You just don't know where he's going. Right foot, left foot, he's got it all, this kid. And, you know, as soon as he's squared up to Anderson, for me, I just knew there was only one outcome here, and it was going to be a goal. He's going to find that bottom corner. I don't think you can really blame Leno at any point of this, because he tries to get a hand to it, but it's just atrocious from the get-go all around, really. From the midfield not making that tackle, from Castagna making that stupid pass, and then I think Robinson, I'm going to give a bit of leniency. Like I said, he was a bit far up the pitch, and he managed to get goal side, but you know, couldn't sort his feet out and therefore fell over. But it was just a really messy start, and you know, especially against a team like Bournemouth, who I think we even talked about it in the Discord, where if you were able to, well, I think it was from dropped points from winning positions, I think we would have been second and Bournemouth would be third. So for a team like Bournemouth to go 1-0 up against us, it was going to be an uphill battle from that point, and they are a good team, hence why they're in and around exactly where we are as well. So we really didn't set ourselves up for success from the get-go.
Luke, Jimmy, anything to add there? I mean, Skippy's covered it pretty well, I think. Probably not a huge amount to add, but is there anything that you think we've missed? Are we being too hard on any one of those players in that particular scenario?
No, I don't think so. I think Timmy made a mistake. He needs to take that on the chin. I don't think you can really blame Anthony. As Skibby said, he went a long way back. So it is what it is. Semenyo shoots whenever he gets near the box. He's got the most shots outside the box in the entire league. So we should have expected that maybe a bit better. In the transition should have been better in the first minute. Bournemouth press higher than anyone else in the league. So if we make a mistake, we know we're going to have to track back better. So, I mean, we paid for it in the first minute. We learned our lesson, but it was too late, unfortunately. But yeah, I don't really like blaming individual players, except Timmy this time.
Well, I mean, it's not, blame's the wrong word. Maybe you're here to shoot the shit and to give some insight in, and so if blame is part of all of that, then I think that's okay. It's not personal, and it's not deeply critical, but you know, if someone's done something wrong, I think it's cool to call it out. Yeah. Jimmy, anything to add?
Yeah, no. Look, I think like what Skippy said, I think there was a time there where Sander Berge, when we could have probably tackled or maybe got the yellow card or taken a hit, maybe thought it was very early in the game, right? We were actually, let's be honest, we were actually attacking at that stage really early, like in the first 40 seconds. We were, I think there was a chest down by Munez when that ball kind of came out to Castagna when he passed it back. But my only thing is probably Anderson could have, should have got maybe closed down. Semenyo was always going to shoot that ball. He was always going to take a shot no matter what. So yeah, I was probably a little bit disappointed with that. I just think maybe it was just that the sharpness at the start of the game wasn't there, and it took us that first 10 to 15 minutes to get into the game. So that sharpness for especially our defenders, I think everyone just got that shock. It was just a big shock moment, like they weren't expecting it. And you could see it when the cameras went to Marco's face. He was, I don't think I've seen Marco this year that shocked, almost like he saw a ghost. So, yeah, other than that, I thought maybe Anderson could have maybe, I think it's much of a muchness, right? Semenyo was always going to take the shot, and it was a great shot. So let's give him credit.
Yeah, look, I think that's very reasonable. I think, you need to give them some credit for kind of overrunning us very, very effectively very early in the game. I think it was a bit of a mental lapse from Castagna. He couldn't possibly have meant to do that, so he hasn't executed that very well. What it does point to, though, is a bit of a common theme, certainly in the Discord, which I haven't mentioned, but I will flog later. And that is, I will. Don't worry, I will. That is that we need to find a way to introduce a little bit more mongrel into Sander Berg's game.
Is he
Oh.
gone?
He is gone.
Okay.
he's
Well, I
fine.
think what.
Oh no, he's
Oh,
back.
you're back.
He's back.
Oh, good.
I'm back.
You're back.
I was going to
Just
paraphrase
not-
it.
Yeah, not enough time to talk about me. I'm back. But yeah, we just need to find a way. We need to find a way to introduce that mongrel and that ability to instantly switch on and actually take one for the team and actually foul a team in really quick transition who you can see is going to hurt us, right? And
But it's that point, isn't it, that you need someone in your team who is always identified as that cliche of you love them when they play for you, but you hate playing against them. You know, I'm thinking like the Robbie Savages, the Michael Browns. We had Steph Joe. Steph Joe was an absolute dickhead on the pitch, but I absolutely loved it. Like, can you imagine that game yesterday? You'd have just seen Steph Joe just go, all right, hook on the back of the leg, no problem, gets up, tries to walk away, ref gives a yellow. All the Bournemouth team are seething and he doesn't give a shit. That's exactly what we needed. And I just don't see that in Lukic or Berger. I might be wrong. I think they're very, very classy players and they are fantastic players, but you just need that kind of real dickish player
The Bulldog.
yeah.
in the team. The Bulldog, yeah.
Well, we'll talk about this later because I think it is an interesting topic, and I certainly want to go round the square here, if not the circle, and get your views on this. But one such man who I guess we enjoyed and were very entertained by last year, João Palhinha, and he certainly had that in his locker. And he's a man who allegedly is potentially up for sale and up for transfer. And I just wonder whether that's a man who we would like to see back, or whether we even will see back. But anyway, let's carry on and talk a little bit more about the first half. And I think it was Luke who mentioned that they are a very Bournemouth are a very hard pressing side. And I think they really unsettled us very early on. In the first 10, maybe 15 minutes, we looked untidy, and players who you'd normally rely upon and depend upon were making some fairly unforced, silly-looking errors. I think Robinson was in that camp. And, well, remind me who some of the other guys were. But I just noticed overall we were untidy, certainly in defence and in defensive midfield. But there's always a reason for that. These guys are no fools. So, on the training ground, these things don't happen. But when you're getting swarmed by two or three other players, it makes it look a little bit more. It makes you look a little bit more silly than you really are, probably. But what was interesting, notwithstanding all of that, I thought we had so many opportunities in the first 30 minutes, possibly 3, maybe 4 opportunities, where once again, common theme here, we just couldn't put it in the back of the net, and we could make all kinds of excuses about how unlucky we were, and yet the net does not bulge. And it just happens way too often. And the build-up play in every one of those instances, I can think of certainly Mooney's at about the 30-minute mark, gets a fantastic opportunity, does really well, and just about gets himself one-on-one with the keeper, and then drags it wide to the left. Yeah, absolutely.
Andreas was there.
Yeah, that's
another
a couple
one
of times,
of those
isn't it?
stupid cliches as well. I remember, because we talked during the game in our sort of That's So Craven chat, and Dave was sort of saying that, as a striker, you're expecting any striker to take a shot there. But, I mean, I don't agree with that. I think it's like, I get it, and I do get it that strikers are greedy and they all want to score goals. But at this point, 1, you're 1-0 down. 2, you've got, from what I've seen, your best mate, Andreas Pereira, in acres just for a tap-in. Would you not want to set up your best mate? I don't know. But it just seemed like one of those moments where I just feel like he should have put the team first and opted for a roll-in just to get us back on terms, and then you can start sort of growing into the game. I just thought that was the wrong decision from Muniz at that point. Don't know what you guys think, but
Yeah.
I think maybe he was going for top bins, or at least the far post, and then that could potentially get a parry, and then Andreas would get a tap in that way. I'd like to think that's what he was thinking in terms of a team game. I'm not sure if the way he was running, he could see where Andreas was, because he was kind of running
that's also
towards.
true.
Yeah,
He
towards
took
the-
himself really weirdly wide as well. Don't know why he did that.
Yeah, he did. Yeah,
I think you're right, Luke. I think you're right. I don't think Muniz is an unselfish player. I mean, he's certainly got the instincts to, have a shot whenever there's a half opportunity. I think his peripheral vision was not so good in that instance.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't completely clear. He'd broken free, but he had a couple on his ass, and he was under quite a lot of pressure. So he sort of, nevertheless, he should have actually had the presence to look up and at least see Pereira in a lot of space. Look, I think there were. Look, I thought there were, as I said, probably 4, maybe 5 opportunities that we simply didn't take. And whilst Bournemouth were good, I didn't think that in the sort of from about the 15-minute mark onwards, I thought we held the ball pretty well and we had the opportunities, but just couldn't actually make the best of them.
I think just before the Muniz part, Evan Nilsson hit the bar, didn't he?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, before the Muniz attempt, we nearly went 2-0 down.
Should have been 2-0. But
it was actually at the 16-minute mark. I actually made some notes, like a sad little loser, as I was watching the replay. It was actually at the 16-minute mark when he hit the crossbar, and that that would have been, I mean, honestly, I think a bridge too far at that point for us to actually find our way back into the game. But in general, how did you think Muniz actually played in that first half? I actually thought Howson did a bit of a job on him. I thought Howson did a very, very.
Go on, Jimmy. You take this one.
Yeah. Look, I think what Elton was saying, I think he was correct, but I think Muniz was really isolated for most of the game, even though I personally do believe Andreas had a really good game, especially in the first half. I think his work rate was, he was all over the place when he was pressing. But I just think when we all know that Muniz wants to hold up the ball, he wants to do a tap down, there was no one really there for him. So he had nowhere to go. So there was times there in that first 15, 20 minutes where nothing was going on up front. Muniz was isolated. Yes, he picked up a couple of fouls where we got some free kicks, but other than that and the break and the miss, he was quiet, and he wasn't his. I don't think he was his Muniz self. Yes, he had the header went straight to the keeper for a really good attempt, but yeah, he was quiet. He was quiet.
I think it was one of those things where I saw defending, which I always want to see from Bassi and Anderson against a tricky striker, because he's the outlet. He is going to be our main threat. But I think there was wasn't even like 30 seconds on the clock, I think, and he took one straight in the back, and he got up very slowly from that one, and then I think from 30 seconds onwards, he was a bit crocked, and I think you saw they were always sort of panning, and they were always talking to him. They were always getting Raul warm, and he made it to the hour mark or whatever we made the change. But I think even after that, I remember there was a moment where Huijsen just kicked through the back of him, left him in a heap. Didn't get a book in though, and I think that's the difference. Is there's only so many times he can do that to Muniz. And more or less, it's a maximum of 3 times. one to get away with it, one to get your first booking, and then second for a red card.
Yeah.
I think I counted probably about 3 times that Muniz got kicked through the back of, and I don't think there was any yellows coming out. And I think that just disrupts the play, doesn't it? It's just once you kind of bully him and leave something on him a bit, then he's kind of then playing a 70%, 75% for the rest of the game, just because he's taken a bit of a kick to the back of the leg and it just hinders you a bit. But I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, from a defensive standpoint, that's kind of exactly how you want to handle someone like Muniz, I think. But I think he had an okay game. Wasn't his best, wasn't his worst, and I don't think that like Raul would have had a much better game from the get-go anyway. I mean, Luke, I don't know if you have a different thought or if you think that, you know.
No, not really. I think that this Houston guy from Bournemouth is very underrated. I don't see him being at Bournemouth next year. I think he's going to be picked up by one of the top 5 or 6 clubs. I was watching him a lot, and the second time I put myself through it, and he's already managing that entire back line. So one of the things that did disappoint me is when Muniz got through on goal, spoke before, Senesi made the mistake. He also made a mistake about within maybe 90 seconds later or 2 minutes later, and we didn't have the foresight to keep putting pressure on him, on that one particular player to bring more and more mistakes. So sometimes I think when Muniz is playing, we need to have someone he's got a really good relationship with so they can work together. He needs that partnership. Raul Jimenez can do what he wants with anyone in the team. He's a seasoned striker, but I think Muniz still needs to be nurtured a bit more and shown more game management across the back line. But I think he did okay. He was fine. He wasn't getting a lot of our crosses were either going over his head or going straight to defenders. So we can't really begrudge him for that. A lot of our shots throughout the entire game seemed to be going directly to Kepa, the keeper. So it was very frustrating to watch. He's like a magnet, that guy. Yeah.
Well, is he a magnet?
Just one thing I want to mention is, Luke, you really touched upon something there, which I didn't notice until half-time, which was they had 2 left-footed centre-backs playing at the time. So Senesi and Højsted were both left-footed. So I don't know why we didn't do what everyone did with us when Bassi was put at right back, which was force Højsted onto his right foot and just don't let him out. We just didn't seem to play that way. I mean, interestingly enough, it was actually the more familiar left-footed player in the left-footed position who was making all the mistakes, which is a bit strange. I mean, maybe that's a sort of credit to Højsted and how he sort of took the role on the right side of centre-back. But I just didn't see that enough that we were letting them play out and trying to sort of hassle him onto his right foot and make mistakes and allow us to sort of take that as to our advantage. But yeah, sorry, Elton.
Yeah. I think Højsted actually got player of the match.
Thinking about
sorry.
You go, Jimmy.
Sorry, I was just saying. I think Højsted, he actually got player of the match.
Selections or the starting lineup. I think it's guys. Just thinking about selections for that starting lineup, and I mean, it's not that surprising that Marco didn't make any changes following the win at Liverpool, because I think he tends to go on form rather than anything else for most of the time. But in terms of his decision, which I know is vibes and it would be very much a crowd pleaser to start Ryan Sessegnon, how do you think he went yesterday?
You go,
Jimmy. How about you?
Or Jimmy?
Look, I think Sessegnon had a really good first half. I thought he demonstrated. There was times he looked dangerous down there and when he was crossing the ball or trying to square it, he won us a couple of corners. I just think there was a lot of times where he was crossing in the box that there wasn't really anyone other than Núñez in the box to pass to. We just didn't seem to get many bodies in the box at those vital stages in that first half to get back into the game. Look, and obviously when he came off, he wasn't the player that was supposed to come off in that calamity. I think we'll go on about that later on, because I think that was what was going on was absolutely crazy. We'll come back to that. But yeah, look, I think Sessegnon deserved to be in the starting lineup, especially from his last game, and I think he did get a shot away, and he was in the box when he was meant to be in the box, and that's what that's the play that we need. Someone who can get those scrappy balls. He knows how to. He studies the game. He knows where the ball's going to go, and he just tends to be there all the time. So I think he had a really, really good game, and yeah, and it was a shame that he actually came off, because I actually think that made a difference when he came off, personally.
Well, we'll touch on that later, because that was one of those sort of crazy moments that is difficult to understand and explain if you don't know what's going on at the time. And it's an interesting one, and I think it's fairly controversial. I'm not sure it would have massively changed the outcome, but who knows? It was, it was, what is it, the 58th, 56th minute when it happened. So there was a lot of time left in the game for the man that was not supposed to come off to be taken off. How do you guys feel Iwobi performed yesterday? Because obviously he was the guy on the other side. And Iwobi's form has been, he had a good game against Liverpool, but his form has been on the sort of decline over the last month or 6 weeks. How did you think he got on yesterday, Luke?
I thought he played really well, especially in the second half. He had a lot of good chances. Once again, he was hitting it straight at the keeper, though, which was a little bit frustrating. I think he came into the middle a bit too much. I wouldn't mind just playing him there instead of Pereira and to see how it goes, because he clearly wants to stick himself there. I don't think we've got the depth out wide for that to happen, but it's giving Robinson a lot of work to do in terms of tracking up and down the touchline with him going in the middle so much, which is a bit troublesome, especially as we come to play. We've got that lot down the road next week, and their wingers are very fast, so we need to watch out for that. But I think I didn't see a lot of creativity from Andreas, so I think he had to take a lot of that on, which is part of the reason why he's coming into the middle. I thought he played pretty well. I think he's one of our best players, to be fair.
Yeah, Skibby, anything to add on that?
I think he had his quiet moments, grew into the game a little bit, probably not to the level that we used to, but he still had some good moments. And the ball in for Ryan Sessegnon's chance was a peach, straight over the last defender's head. And unfortunately for Ryan, he's not a strong header of the ball. I think you've got to go either side of the goalkeeper at that point. Unfortunately, it went straight at him and quite an easy save. But that was more or less the story of the tape from the entire game, which was Kepa was quite accident prone, mistake prone when he was at Chelsea, hence why he's now at Bournemouth. We just didn't challenge him enough. We just didn't put anything remotely near a corner. I think the nearest that we did was an Iwobi chance where I think he sat down Tyler Adams, found himself in loads of space and kind of got it out of his feet and tried to curl it into the top corner. I think that was in the second half. But it was a fantastic effort. I don't think he can do much more. It got stuck under his foot a little bit. So, it wasn't straight at the keeper, but it was still a comfortable height for him, which was unfortunate. But that, I'd probably say, was probably one of our better shots to sort of challenge Kepa. But I think for Iwobi, there is the point of he is getting found out a bit more, I think, where he was sort of getting a lot of success earlier in the season. There's now hours and hours of his tape that other teams can watch and exactly pinpoint how we play, how we use Iwobi to the best of his ability. And I think that's now being found out that, he likes to sort of cut inside. Robinson likes to get on the overlap. And if you cut that out, then, I think sometimes you see that they double up on that side, overload that side to really squander us using Iwobi and Robinson in a way that can really hurt teams. So I think it's now getting to a point where we potentially need to be a bit more imaginative in how we use Iwobi, because I think, as Luke said, he is one of our best players. I think a few pods ago I said that he was actually in the running for me for our player of the season so far, because he's just been Mr. Consistent for me. But unfortunately, there is that kind of drop off in the last few games, but I think that's expected. There's fatigue. He has been our sort of first name on the team sheet, much similar to sort of Castagna. Doesn't really get much of a rest. because we've had to rely on him on some really key games, and he's really sort of come up trumps for us. So I think there is a bit of leniency that I do think that, as Luke said, he really did come on his own in the second half. I think there was a bit of a shaky start, but the whole team had a bit of a quiet start. But in terms of the second half, and when he started to sort of find his feet a bit better and finding a bit more space, then we were starting to hurt them a little bit using Iwobi. But not his best, but still a decent performance from Iwobi, I believe. I don't know if Elton's still there, so I'll carry on. But I think there was another point which I wanted to sort of touch upon. So there was a potential red card at the end of the sort of first half where I think the ball came out from a corner, Anderson picked the ball up, and Senesi came in. I mean, you see him. You sometimes you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Let's be honest. If that was against us, I'd probably be. Well, it was against us, so I was calling for a red card. But if that was Anderson or Bassi, I'd probably say, oh, yeah, it's a yellow, no problems at all. But I think the way that it was, he got the ball, which nowadays is apparently irrelevant. But you do see the follow-through studs up on the shin. And, I mean, Jimmy, nowadays, isn't that the letter of the law? Studs up on the shin is a red card. Above the ankle, I think, is the law.
Correct. I just think I think the VAR said there was no type of malice or follow through. I believe. I don't know if that's what I was hearing, and that's why it stayed with the yellow card. So yeah, I really honestly thought when there was kind of like a check going, oh, this is going to be great for us, especially just before the break, because obviously he also got subbed straight away. So Areola just obviously did the first sub because of the yellow card. But when it did happen, I honestly thought, yeah, we're going to get something here, because we hadn't had any, with Muniz and everyone getting, there was a couple of other yellow card chances, but apparently there was no red because there was no type of malice or follow through into the shin. So I always thought that was it's a straight red, but anyway.
I actually thought Anderson used his wits there, and I think, I actually think he barely caught him. He definitely studs up. I don't think he hurt him. Not that should matter. And Anderson was making a bit of a meal of it, I think, because clearly, technically, that should have been considered as a red card. And he was kind of, that one where he's sort of hunched over and he got the fake groan going on, but he's looking up at the ref to see what color card he's pulling out of his pocket, kind of thing. And he had words afterwards as well and followed through. But yeah, I think if VAR had seen real contact there, probably would have made a difference. I think it's incorrect to say that there was no malice, because I think if you go in with studs up, unless you've tripped and somehow completely balls it up, that is malicious. You're I don't know how else you can interpret that. Whether you actually catch the play or not shouldn't come into it. How did you think Pereira did? I actually thought he played pretty well in the first half. I thought, as always, he was busy, and I think he actually had some pretty good positive impact. But perhaps what he should have been doing, that one of you guys were commenting about, is possibly pairing up a bit closer to Muniz. As someone who probably understands the way Muniz thinks or likes to play more than anything else. And I guess, that didn't happen. But just, because it's topical and we've been talking about Andreas's sort of form and his impact on the game. Any comments there on how you thought he got on yesterday?
Go ahead, Luke.
Skippy?
I think he did okay, but as I said before, I needed more creativity from him, and he needed to work with Muniz more. Muniz needs to be carry through a game in that combination. But if he does, he can score multiple goals. I'm just concerned that Andreas is playing too much of a midfield position instead of supporting the forward line, which I'd like to see more of. I'm not really
Well,
sure.
maybe
I'm not
your
really sure
problem
what he
is
wants to do when he gets on the pitch. That's all.
yeah, and the alternative, I guess, positionally is Emil Smith Rowe, and
Oh,
we
don't.
could talk about that till the cows come home.
Yeah.
Harry Wilson on crutches could be a better option.
Yeah,
But but it's really problematic, isn't it? Because we're just not, for everything you expect and you want and you need from a number 10, we're just not getting it.
No.
And I think I kind of feel that partly through the number of different positions that Marco's asked him to play this year, I think Andreas Pereira is becoming confused about what his role really is. And perhaps first and foremost, he knows he's got to be the hardworking pressing guy leading the press, but he's kind of becoming a neither fish nor fowl sort of contributor. Like I find myself saying an awful lot that he's busy and he's working very hard, but he's not involved in significant contributions.
Yeah, he's kind of Elton. He's kind of like that player he's not that player who's going to get the winning goal kind of player. Like he's not going to be the one who's going to get the killer assist or make something that you're going to rely on him. I feel like we just need some. If he is going to be with us next season, we just really need to. We need to see some more goals and some more assists from him and more work rate. And I honestly think where he positions himself next to Munez, he's like 20 to 25 meters away from him. I personally think Munez needs that support where someone is that 10 meters, always 10 meters around the ball with him all the time. And I think that's something where we're lacking, where I think we'll have a lot more goal threat if we had a player like that who is sniffing around Munez and they're working together like that, where they were always kind of 10 meters around each other. I just think Andres Pereira is just not that player at the moment, or he's getting told otherwise from Marco to sit back and help the midfield.
I think there's an element of, if you think about the start of the season, he was moved to try and sort of not be a straight swap, but to plug that João Palhinha-sized gap with Lukic. And, I imagine that throughout the preseason, we knew that Palhinha was going to be leaving. We didn't know, or we didn't have a replacement incoming. And if we did, which was Berger, he was actually out for a month or so before he could even play a game. So yeah. I think there's an element of he's been coached into being that number 8 in the preseason and started the season in that position, with Smith Rowe then sort of taking that number 10 position. But if you actually look at sort of the stats and things, I think the most goals and assists under Silva, I believe number 1 is Muniz, and I think second now is Pereira. So I think in the first season he managed to pick up those goals in the assist. I think he had like 11 or 12 goals and assists in the first season, which I thought was a pretty good return. And we were able to actually score from set pieces for a change. But for me, Pereira has always been that kind of box crasher, getting on the end of things. West Ham comes to mind away last season when we won 2-0, I believe, where I think he took the ball round the goalkeeper, put it in, and then I think it was in a Iwobi run and he crossed it to the back post and there was Pereira there just to stab it home. You don't see him in that position anymore. I mean, Man City this season kind of begs to differ, and I think also Liverpool at Anfield, where he was able to sort of get himself in the 6-yard box. But there was times yesterday where we were just crying out for it, and I think there was a moment where Robinson picked up the ball. This was after we'd made all the changes and we had Robinson much further up the pitch. And he was on his own. He gets it out of his feet. He looks to pass. And in the box, I believe, was Adama at the back post and I think Jimenez or someone. It was 2 people in the box. When you're 1-0 down and you had basically a free shot getting the ball in the box. I just think that's so negative. I just don't see why we don't crash the box more often. Like we at that point we would have Adama out wide. Okay, fair enough. He was in the box. You want Raul to be in the 6-yard box, but then that's when you need Smith Rowe / Pereira. You need Tom Kearney or Lukic. You don't both need to sit. One of you get in the bloody box. Like the more the bodies you get in the box, the more chance you're going to have to score. Because even if you don't get on the end of it, you're putting more pressure on the defense to make a mistake, and they can put it in the back of their own net. But it was just so sickening. Like, got to about the 70th, 80th minute, and there was this free shot of getting it into the box, and there was 2 players, and I think they weren't even anywhere near the 6-yard box. They were still around the penalty area. And it was just really negative for me. But I do feel that's a problem with Andreas at the moment. He just doesn't get in the box. Neither does Smith Rowe.
Well, we've been talking about this all bloody season, and it's really problematic. And I think what we saw early on from Smith Rowe was a player that could potentially be that guy, and it hasn't happened. The only other guy who I see is, well, maybe two people. One is definitely Harry Wilson, definitely capable of that, and doesn't need to be coached to do that. That's just what he wants to do. And if he's given free rein and perhaps allowed to play a bit more centrally, he is a guy who will just want to do that. Sessegnon, yes, but I think he's still some way off actually being a real lock as a permanent starter, and I don't know, maybe having the form and confidence to do that on a regular basis. We know he can do it, but he's just not. I just don't think I'm ready to put my money on him to kind of deliver that week in, week out. So we really are short of it. And back onto the Pereira thing. I think I do feel a bit sorry for him, because I think he's just hasn't adapted that well to a whole series of problems this year and a whole bunch of things that haven't worked very well. And the deck keeps getting shuffled. He's been asked to play in a number of different roles. He's a very good footballer. He's a classy footballer. And when he's hot, he's a very, very useful player. But we just don't seem to be able to find the right position for him with the squad that we've got, or him be able to adapt to where we need him to play, where other people aren't doing it, or they're injured or whatever. It's a real problem. And you simply can't be a great side if you've got a malfunctioning 10. I mean, I unless you've got Haaland up front, or 2 incredible goal-scoring wingers, where you almost don't need that number 10. But name a team who actually picks a side like that. The other thing I think is worth mentioning from that first half is that I actually thought Leno made a number of very, very handy saves. And the guy goes unmentioned a lot, but he actually made a couple of really good saves, which would have buried us even further. I can't remember exactly when it happened, but I think it was one to his left, low down from, I can't remember who it was. It could have been Wood. But yeah, once again, Leno, huge contributor, and it's that position that we just kind of expect him to make those kind of contributions, and everyone else gets the plaudits. I also think, once again, we say it week in, week out, but I thought Bassi was huge yesterday. I thought he was just a monster in defence, and he's so physical and strong, and he's just sky high with confidence at the moment. He's not scared of anyone or anything, and he's pretty damn composed under a lot of pressure. So yeah. So we go into the break. no one expects Marco Silva to make a change at halftime. He never does that. We'd have to be 7 goals down before he makes a change at halftime. I can't remember the last time he did make a change at the break. We get to the 58th minute, and actually the 56th minute, and I didn't actually clock what was going on when the substitutions were about to happen, but there was an awful long delay of nearly 2 minutes at the time, and we see Raul going off Raul coming on for Muniz. We see Adama coming on, and we see who was the other guy who came on?
TC.
Oh, was it Willian?
TC.
No,
TC.
TC. Of course it was. Yeah. I thought it was a pretty strange move to take Berger off. I understand the thinking that maybe we needed a bit more creativity in midfield, but I thought Berger was playing pretty well, to be honest. But I think the biggest talking point around that substitution, whatever you thought of his plans, was the absolute cock up. And I don't know exactly what happened, whether someone wrote down the numbers incorrectly and handed it to the fourth official, or whether the fourth official got the correct communique but put the wrong numbers up on the board. But I think the problem was that whilst Robinson was supposed to be substituted, Sessegnon's number came up and he walked off the field. And then Adama goes on the field, and at that point, the substitution has been completed, and it's basically a lock at that point and can't be reversed. Is my understanding correct there in terms of what happened?
God knows.
Yeah, I got no idea.
I mean, that's what I saw.
I believe
as well.
that's the law. I believe that's the rule, right?
Well, according to Silva, the cock-up was by the fourth official. So the fourth official allowed Fulham to change it, but then as soon as Michael Oliver got involved, he wouldn't let them change it. So that's what they said. But then again, I don't know whether he's just sparing the blushes of his coaching staff, where someone's obviously made the cock-up. But I think it was wrong to take Sess off in that situation. But it seems like that wasn't the end goal anyway.
But it's an interesting one, isn't it? If there's a clear and obvious error, isn't that an opportunity for the fourth official or, a VAR type intervention? I mean, that, imagine maybe Sessegnon wasn't the most significant player at the time, but imagine, he puts, I don't know, someone who's actually operating at absolute peak during the game, and the guy's taken off. And before any of the coaching staff notice, because how many people would actually check the board to make sure that the correct numbers are going up? They just wouldn't. I mean, you just assume that would be correctly implemented. The player sees his number, the player walks off, and, God forbid he's on the other side of the pitch and just walks straight off. So there's not even an opportunity to have a conversation as he's approaching the line to say, hey, no, you're not coming off at all. He could just walk off the other side of the pitch. But if it is a clear and obvious error and something that is so-called not reversible, that seems like a huge problem.
Yeah, and I think it made sense when you looked at the formation after that moment.
No takers?
Yeah. I think when you when you look at the formation from that moment, it actually made sense to me that you saw that Bassi went to kind of left back, or sort of left centre back, Anderson, and then Castagno. We played sort of three at the back, and then Robinson from that moment was really high up the pitch. So that to me did make sense that Sessegnon would then become that kind of defensive winger for those that play Football Manager. I imagine that's probably one of those positions you can use. But yeah, I think one, it gave Robinson a chance to sort of rest because obviously he had a really tough game against Liverpool. We know that he's carrying a bit of an injury. It kind of allowed Cesc to use him on the left hand side, and he can put in a decent ball, right? So it's just a shame that it went the way that it did. But I mean, as we sort of touched upon, Robinson in that position is still a very, very good player. But unfortunately, from that moment on, we don't have anyone who can come on for Robinson. So he's just got to see 90 minutes out, and hopefully that doesn't hinder or flag up his injury too much. But it was just an absolute shit show from someone. We just don't know who. And, we're always going to say that officials are the enemy. They're always going to be an us and them culture. And they're never going to say that they fucked it up, let's be honest. They... With you see with VAR and Howard Webb and how they talk about those sort of things, they always say, oh yeah, but it was subjective or things like that. So this will just get swept under the rug and no one will care, and it'll be probably Fulham's fault in the on the actual report.
Am I fair to say this is not the first time that's happened with us though? Am I remembering
Really?
We had a very similar situation maybe under Silver, maybe last season or the season before that? So when we had
we subbed the wrong player.
Yeah, or something like that, or we've had a mix-up when it came to subs coming in. I just don't see how you can make this error when that's your job, and and if you've got, I just don't see how you can make this mistake. It just seems so simple. You only do it a couple of times a game, or your staff, or your one of the coaches to make sure. Okay, let's just do one at a time, like you're getting onto a bus. Who we and look, it was a general cock up from both personally.
I guess we're lucky they didn't put up Bernd Leno's number and he was off the pitch getting a drink of water or something, because then we could have been down 4-0 within 20 minutes. So, but if it's happened before, then I think the responsibility lies with us.
It's, I mean, think about that. That's probably a very, very good example, though, isn't it? Imagine if you did put the goalkeeper up and no one realizes it. Whoever's fault that is, whether it's our fault in actually putting Leno's number up or the official accidentally putting it up, something as significant as that, there's got to be something that the on-field referee has an opportunity to change, surely.
I wonder what the dial is on the electronic board, because I wonder if he's like gone to put Iwobi on and put 1-7, and then the 7 didn't register, and he's gone, right, that's it, Adama on for Leno, and Adama's now in net, and God knows what's going to happen. But God knows.
Yeah. What did we think about TC coming on? Do you think it was the right move?
Oh God, I'm going to get in trouble if I speak, so I won't.
God.
I think
or Elton, you go.
If it comes off, Jimmy, if it comes off, and everyone will immediately claim it's a creative stroke of genius and just what we needed, but it didn't work. And there was a lot of chat in our private group suggesting that really it was is TC actually done? Is that the end? Is it really how much has he actually got left in him, and what are we doing actually signing TC for another year? No disrespect, great servant of the club and all that, but there comes a time when perhaps it's over.
Yeah. Hard one to say. He looks so slow on the field, doesn't he? It's like he's got concrete in his boots. But anyway, it was just interesting to see what you guys thought about that substitution. I was a little bit okay, and then we all knew that the ESR one was going to happen, but I just felt like he didn't need to. Anyway, that's the other one that came on the 69th.
That's a whole nother podcast, Jimmy.
Yeah, I know.
That's a whole other podcast that we try to have every week, and we don't really come to any solid conclusion other than the fact that I think we're split on that one in terms of many people want to give him the benefit of a full preseason and another year, and others think we've done our dough and picked the wrong guy, and it's just a bit of a mistake. So, look, disappointing as that was, it's not the end of the world. We've got a difficult, tricky set of games and the run in here to the end of the season. There's obviously plenty to play for. I don't want to go on the European tour yet, but we can clearly end in 8th position if a few things go our way, or we take the opportunities that we really should be taking. Surely we beat Everton, although Everton haven't been too bad of late. Surely we can beat Southampton coming up. Obviously there's some tough games. There's Chelsea in there. There's that other crowd up in Manchester who are clearly beatable, but that's going to be an interesting one on the last day of the season. But yeah, I mean, I think, as I said in the opening, it's disappointing because we like to characterize our problems against weaker sides as a problem unpicking low blocks, but that was not the case yesterday. So you kind of have to face the fact that perhaps it was a par performance for Fulham and about all we can expect, other than the anomaly of beating one of the very, very top sides. That maybe is about our standard at the moment. And until we have a much better goal scoring unit that we can rely on week in, week out, that is going to be our fortune and probably all we can expect. It sounds a bit glib and a little bit negative, but I think, if you look at the last 8 games, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. And I don't think that represents the form or the position of the teams that we played in the last 8. Not at all. It's unpredictable, surprising and entertaining at sometimes. But I think we'd forego some of those highs to chop out some of those lows, which are just kind of unacceptable, really. But again, that's a whole nother topic. That's a recruitment topic. That's, that's a squad in a summer conversation that we hope is going to happen. We keep dreaming about this, but it never happens. But if you want to hear more about things like this, you need to discover our Discord, because that's where it all happens. And guys, if you haven't already heard about it, we do have a Discord. It's a very healthy little community. I think the numbers are getting up in the 400s at the moment, which is obviously, small in terms of the crowd that turn up to a game of football every week, and small in terms of the alleged million people who support the Fulham Football Club. But you know what? It's actually, I'm very proud of that space. There's some really, really good conversations going on there. Great chat about transfers, really good content provided by Fulham Transfers, Cottage Tactico, and by individuals who have got a lot to say and are very nice about the way they say it. So, guys, if you haven't already discovered it, help us get to 500. Help us get to 1,000. Wouldn't that be something? That would be amazing. Be like the guy. I'm going to be like the guy who says, hit the bell. Help us get there.
Like and subscribe.
Seriously. Yeah. Like and subscribe. But yeah, look, it really is the most non-toxic place you can really find to talk about Fulham. And, there are people around the planet who are always up and talking about it. So we never sleep. But so please do find the Discord and come and join us. We'd love to see you all there. Guys, I think having just tipped the hour mark, I think we've probably done enough. I apologize for my piss poor Wi-Fi and dropping out. It's an interesting way of hosting a podcast when you can only hear about 70% of it, and you're trying to work out what's actually being said. So that's an interesting challenge, but it's why not? It's another way to spend an evening. So, guys, thank you so much for joining. Jimmy, particularly you, thank you for joining us for the first time. Luke, thanks for stepping in. Really, really good to have your comments. Skibby, thank you always for stepping in. I know you didn't want to do this one, but I'm here to tell you that it's going to make your Monday afternoon better. And I'm also here to tell you that if Fulham games don't change your mood, better or for worse, you're a shit supporter. So
That's true.
That's the way it has to be. That's just the way it is, and that's the way it has to be. So, guys, thank you very, very much for joining me and for supporting me when my line was down and talking through it. It's quite good, actually, just sitting back, watching the circles go around and watching who's going to pick it up next and who's going to keep talking and keep tap dancing so I do come back on the screen. So that's always fun to sit here and watch, given that I can do nothing about it. But anyway, we will be back. I won't be, but some of us will be on Thursday night for After Dark. I'm sure Skippy will be making an appearance, and David Crave and Mark and Mary and all your favourites. So please look for us on Thursday evening when we will be back to talk about and preview the Chelsea match on the weekend, which is obviously a very, very big one coming up. And so I think it's about time for us to say goodbye. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for your chat on the live stream. And come on, you Whites.
You Whites.
Come on, you Whites.